we have Leo and Madison from the DEA Ranch. So if you could tell us your history of how you got to where you are today.
I mean, I grew up in Freer, deer hunting country, and that's rattlesnakes and deer. You could see the shift. The deer were just kind of coming up, becoming more valuable.
How are you looking at pedigrees versus what industry standard would be?
Everybody pushes bucks, and you see that big buck on a poster and you think, I need it. Well, how are you going to get it? You need that good mama.
Can you kind of talk about how where you got to with CWD and what y'all's story is?
We don't have CWD.
Right.
Never tested positive. Don't have a problem with it. The problem is the testing. If you don't have X amount of deer die, you have to test, one to 5? So for every deer that doesn't die, you got to test 5.
If you keep your deer alive, you're punished. Now you have to go test more deer.
Make it make sense. I don't know.
Before we start today's episode, I just wanted to ask everyone to subscribe to our channels. Again, the more people that like, subscribe, and comment, the better our analytics are and the better the guests we have. But a fun fact for you, only 38% of the people who actually watch or listen to the podcast are subscribed. So again, before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just clicking the little subscribe button, it would really help us out a ton. Thanks and enjoy. Today is going to be a really good one in my opinion, but we have Leo and Madison from the DEA Ranch, and we're going to get into everything from whitetail breeding, running a hunting operation, and CWD. Let's talk about it. All right, Leo, Madison, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
Yes,
so,
sir.
Leo, if you could kind of go back into your history a little bit. I know you've been in the ranching world for a couple years.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
So if you could tell us your history of how you got to where you are today.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Freer, which if, everybody knows Freer. It's
Right.
deer hunting country, and that's rattlesnakes and deer.
Right.
So, growing up there and just always been around it. My family, my grandfather managed a ranch for 30, 40 years, same place actually. So I kind of grew up out there with him doing cow work, and back then it was cattle, the deer were secondary. Hunting wasn't a big thing. Everybody just leased their ranch. Very few places doing even like hunts, day hunts or selling package hunts, I guess. But just grew up there, small town, and we hunted, grew up hunting, grew up around it. And then just because that's what we did. So I kind of loved it and went into college and got done and went right into ranching. And it was just cattle with the deer were secondary.
Right.
And then about, I don't know, probably the early 90s, I guess, you could see the shift where I could see the deer were just kind of coming up, becoming more valuable, I guess. And so I saw that, and I tell everybody, and I know I told you this story here a couple of weeks ago, I was out checking cattle one day, and the guys that had the deer lease said, hey, you working this weekend, you want to help us? And I was like, sure, make some extra money, and helped them put up some deer blinds and some feeders. And man, they paid me probably double of what I was making day working cattle. And I was like, hold on a minute, this is pretty good,
Right.
So I could see it coming. So, and you transition, I was always been on ranches. So the ranchers start realizing that, hey, there's some money here, so the cattle almost become secondary, so I just kind of went with the flow and just tried to go with what was needing to be done.
Right.
And so the deer became primary, and the cattle became secondary.
Well, I'm sure back then in like the 80s when you were going through the whitetail, since they were secondary,
Yes.
were growing huge out in the pasture.
It was a lot different. I remember people not shooting does. That's a factory, I remember not getting doe tags, no, you can't shoot no does. So yeah, it was a lot different. I remember, it was in the late 80s going, hey, we need to shoot X amount of does, and everybody going, what? Because they started realizing that, density, hey, we got too many. And of course, coming out of, and when we're kind of talking about it now, screwworms, the deer numbers went down so far that they weren't shooting them. And then they get rid of the screwworm, in the 60s, 70s, and then the numbers start coming up. So it kind of was, I hate to say managing itself, but it was. It's a numbers game. I don't care what anybody says. Deer is a numbers game.
100%.
You've got to keep your density right to get your deer to eat right. And that was pre-protein. I mean, we didn't know what protein was.
Right.
Heck, half the time we weren't even hunting with corn. We might have had a feeder here and there, but we were waiting for December to hunt the rut because was the best time to hunt. You could rattle, you could get out and, do this and that. But, so yeah, it's changed quite a bit. It's changed a lot actually, now that I think back, but so I could see that and I saw that coming and I kind of just went with it because the ranchers were doing it and we had to, it was out of necessity more than anything. So, and my background is cattle. I grew up, like I said, when I was a kid, everything was cows. So I'm not a biologist, I told Madison, we talk about it, and it's the school of hard knocks, but I did see that coming and I would latch onto these guys and I was never too proud to go, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I was real lucky to be around some of the best deer managers, that I feel like in South Texas, which was the place to be, back then. And these guys, they were so gracious to answer my questions when I would just follow them around and go, hey, or we'd be on the ranch doing something and I'd go, hey, I got some questions. And we would sit around, we'd have these sessions just like this, Austin. We'd sit around for hours and just talk deer.
Right.
Because that's the way we had to do it. I was pulling knowledge from, some of the best deer managers and biologists, Jimmy Rutledge. I give props to Jimmy all the time because he was the guy. He still is. This guy has probably raised more big deer than anybody you'll ever meet. He was with the hinds, when nobody knew who the hinds were, and they were growing big deer back before people even realized you could grow big deer by managing right. And so, Jimmy, Jim Hilge, they're just, the list goes on and on and on. Madison got to meet, a guy, in February in Houston, Dr. Lewis Harvison. The guy is just one of the, he's a biologist, conservationist, and, got to hang out with him. And, we were all young, but we were all like, we had a common goal, and that was to grow big deer. Mm. And so we would bounce stuff off each other and, hey, what are you doing? What are you seeing? What would you do here? What would you do in this situation? Hey, I've got this many deer. I've got these does, we're flying surveys. What do we need to do? And, it was, we kind of morphed into the deer, or I did, but, that's just the way it went,
Right.
Excuse me.
You're good. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is,
yes, sir.
So you're still running cattle today.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the main differences in the way you used to run cattle and the way you run cattle now?
We just talked about this morning. She was asking me, it's funny because we had, we got to drive up here and, we left pretty early this morning to get here. And on the way and I love it because she's thinking, just shows me that she's thinking. Mm. She goes, she asked me that very question. She goes, so when you ran cattle back, way back when, did y'all rotate pastures? And I said, no. And she said, really? Which is kind of foreign to her because now we rotate. Right. we move our cattle around and we watch our grass and we watch our brush and, what are they eating? And we need to move them. And I said, no, we figured out what the carrying capacity was and we put them out. And that's what we did. And she was like, what? And that was her response. What? I said, yeah, and there's still a lot of ranches that do that. They because of where they're at. Mm. And that's what makes it all unique because every ranch is different. And some places can't, I've been on big ranches, I've been on little ranches, and sometimes the smaller's better because you can manage it a little easier. But I've been everywhere from 20, 30. We had cattle on one ranch that was 45,000 acres. It's hard to rotate. You can do it.
Right.
But from a management standpoint, man, it's tough.
That's real cowboying.
You got to have a lot of people, and it was okay when your cowboys were making $50 a day, but now, you've got a guy that comes out to work cattle with you, and it's $200 a day. Which I understand. They're making a living, and so I'm not beating up anybody on, oh man, you're charging too much. No, I get it. It's a lot of work, and it's a specialized work, and so. Is it cost effective to say, hey, we've got 40,000 acres and we're going to rotate our cattle? Some places make the commitment to do it. I know of a couple places. There was one that she follows in particular that I used to manage back in the early 90s, and we were rotational grazing on 20 some odd thousand acres, but it was very labor intensive. But their goal was to, hey, we're going to do this because it's good for the ranch.
Right.
So you make that decision of, hey, this is going to be good for the ranch, and you put the ranch first because everything follows. If the ranch is doing good and your cattle are doing good, then your deer are doing good, and so on and so on. So
right.
It can be done, but it's tough. But a big difference is that technology. Man, technology is amazing. I told Madison this morning as we were driving, I said, my grandfather. He told me one day, we were sitting out on the porch of the ranch house there, taking a little siesta middle of summer. I would go out there every summer and just spend all summers out there with him. And he said, it's amazing to think. And I guess, he was getting older and he's thinking about me sitting there, he's got his grandson sitting on this ranch that he's been on for 30 years. And I guess you get sentimental, I guess. And because I do it now, looking back. And he said, it's been amazing to see all the changes that are going on. He goes, and I just can't imagine the things that you're going to see that I'm never going to be able to see. Mm. And I thought, hey, at the time, I'm like, yeah, okay. And now I look back and I'm getting close to the age that he was, and I just think, holy cow. If he could see what we do with the cattle and the computers, we weigh our steers once a week. Every 7 to 10 days, we're bringing cattle in to run them through a chute, a digital scale that we then log into a computer, to keep track of what they're doing and how they're performing. And he would have looked at us and said, "What are you talking about? We're weighing cattle every week." We just didn't do it because they didn't have the technology.
So is the way you weighed them before, was it like a weigh station with an 18-wheeler? You drove in and just divided it by head, or
didn't
what?
even weigh them back then. Mm. It was purely cow-calf. Let's get some beef on the ground, load them in a trailer, send them to the sale barn.
Man.
They would send some bulls off on that place that I grew up on and develop some bulls because the bulls were important. So they put a lot of emphasis in the bulls. And I remember taking bulls to the Elgin Bull Center, and it's still there. That place is still there. Yeah. We store semen there, deer semen. The difference. Yeah. The difference in the time is we have a deer semen at the Elgin Bull Center. We also have our cow semen, but it's just such a different world. It was just get that mama to raise a calf and get it to be as big as you could because it was pounds.
Right.
Now we're looking at how much is it gaining daily? Why is it not gaining? Is it the mama? Is it the bull? Well, this mama's, this is her second calf that is not performing. Well, guess what? She's got to go.
Right.
And it at the same time, it's efficiency. Mm. We're working on efficiency. It's no different than breeding deer when sometimes, and I know you've seen it, you've got a buck and he could be the biggest buck in the world, but he throws better does than he does bucks.
100%.
So you want the mamas, not so much of, okay, well, he's throwing me, 250 inch deer, over and over and over. No, he's not doing so well, but his mamas, boy, they throw whatever you put in them. They're going to throw some big deer. No different with the cattle. So it's just records to see, but yeah, the technology nowadays, I got a meeting this evening. We're looking at collars for our cattle. fenceless, fenceless grazing.
Man, I'm curious. I saw that while we were at CattleCon.
Yes, sir.
One of our booths right next to us. I don't know what company it was, or you can say I don't care, but it was Halter.
Halter, that's who we're meeting with.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Tell them it's because you saw us at CattleCon.
Yeah, I'll tell him. I'll tell him.
But Madison, so when you're talking to your dad doing this and being the younger generation, what are you taking away from it when you're asking him those questions?
We just talked about this coming up because I feel like, I didn't go to school, and a lot of the kids now are going to school to get it. And I've talked to people my age, and in my head, I'm thinking, you're never going to make it. Out here, because you come and sit on our ranch and you don't know our ranch. And I've taken away a lot in just meeting different people, the contacts that I have. And Macy was on your last one, and he is so full of knowledge.
Right.
And kids don't want to sit down and listen to him because they think he's some old guy. But those are the ones that are the future, that are training the future up.
Right.
And especially, I told my dad, I said, okay, Macy was right. So you're right, because Macy was right. So you weren't lying when you said all that stuff. But even like Jimmy, I've met so many deer breeder guys that are older and they're smarter. And I think just taking away knowledge, and my dad has always told me you have 2 ears and one mouth, listen more than you talk. Yep. And I think it comes into play here because there's so many things that I'm going to take away from him that we're implementing now. So when he's not on the ranch anymore, I can stand up and say, no, I know how to do it, and this is the way we're going to do it. And a lot of we practice new stuff on the ranch. You have to keep up with stuff, but there's a lot of older stuff that he practiced in the 80s and 90s that we're doing now because it's the best, and it worked then, so it's going to work now.
Right.
And you just tweak it a little bit from here on out, but it's a lot of knowledge that you have to take in and a lot of learning, and there's always something new. It's like that. We finally got our cows where it was like, okay, we're doing good. And then it was like, hey, we're going to plant fruit and trees. And it's like, okay, so now we're learning about trees and doing all of that. And it's a hard adjustment. But then right in the middle of that, we're talking to our vets because we still have to get AI meds and we're testing deer. And okay, now we have to condition our cows because we're 2 months away from AI. So what do we need? We need mineral. We need to move them out of this pasture and put them in the other one.
And we're in the middle of a drought.
Yeah. And it's dry. And so it makes a big difference. So now we're looking at 4 different minerals, trying to decide what mineral we need because we haven't gotten rain in 8 months.
Yeah, maybe more.
7 months.
Yeah.
And so it's totally different, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of literally sitting there going, what's our next move? What are we going to do? Because what we do now is going to affect us in 2 years,
100%.
No matter what you do, especially with the cattle. It's like that. I've talked to so many cattle people recently, and they're so worried about the bulls. And one of the guys told me, you need bulls. You're not going to do good without them. You need good ones. And on my end, I'm thinking, no, I don't. I need 75 really good mamas to give me those bulls that we can keep 2 bulls and be able to breed, but I need 20 steers.
Right.
Because that's what we're in. We're selling beef. And it's a big, adjustment even like that. He's talking about bulls back then. You're conditioning them. We don't have any bulls on the ranch at all. And we don't really plan to because we have good mamas that are going to give us good cows.
Right.
And so now with pedigrees, so instead of deer pedigrees, we don't really look at them anymore. Now we're looking at cow pedigrees 24/7, trying to make sure that we have a really good mama side so we can get better steers, so we can have better marbling in our meat.
Man, that's one thing. I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next tie into this is when we were at the ranch last week or whenever it was, is we talked about, there was whitetail breeders that brought out books looking at horse pedigrees from the UK or whatever it was, from the lineage way back then. Yeah, the refuge, or the old refuge. And then we know, and we look at, as you mentioned earlier, is we try to look and go, okay, what is the dam side or the mom side doing and what is she producing? And I don't know if it's a sales tactic. It's everywhere, right? It's not the cattle industry. It's anywhere and everywhere. They're like, oh, you need this, 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 and this.
Sure.
But half the time it's them trying to get rid of what they have too much of.
Sure.
And so how are you taking your whitetail background into this cattle industry, and how are you looking at pedigrees versus what industry standard would be?
I guess the same way that is with bucks. Everybody pushes bucks, and you see that big buck on a poster and you think, I need it. Well, how are you going to get it? You need that good mama. And he taught me that at Straight Line, which was 12 years ago. Now, 12 years ago, he taught me that. And I sat there at 12 years old and heard him talk with other people and say, no, I have to find this mama and I'm going to build this mama here so it's mine.
Yeah.
They have that, but I'm going to have this. And I remember going to sales and him looking for this one tag and then him finding it and saying, okay, I need that one. Because now I have these 3 at home and we're going to make this. And then he grew Stomper.
Yeah.
Huge deer. Huge. Because he went back all on the mama side. And I think that he implements that a lot in me. And so now in the cattle, he looks at the pedigrees, like I'll pull them all together and I'll hand them to him like, here, just look at these, but I already picked. So just look at them. And a lot of it is on the mama side. And I'll say, look, if we stack this on top, you're going to have this in a diagonal line because it runs like this.
Right.
You don't want to run this way. So you run this way and you stack them like this. And so I think,
the example that I gave her is, okay, you can take a buck and you can breed him to 20 does. And he might give you 5 or 6 big bucks, right? So it's on the, there's a reason that happens. Well, those does didn't click, didn't match, didn't whatever. But you can take 20 does and put any buck and have big bucks.
Right.
Okay. So when you start, because the common denominator is the doe to me, not the buck. So I can, especially if you're AI. So if you've got, 15, 20 different does, now if you're going to put them in a pen with a live buck, okay, that's even more reason to get your does right.
Right.
Because now you're not picking and choosing what's going in those girls. Mm-hmm. You're just going, okay, we're going to put this one in here and we hope it does well.
Yeah. And you cross your fingers.
Right. But if you do your homework and say, okay, these are the girls that are, there's a reason that I have these girls because they all throw good. Doesn't matter what you put in them. They're going to give you what you're looking for. So we put more emphasis on the mama side than we do the buck side. And that was the example I used with her. The good girls were going to give you a big deer, but a big buck's not going to give you a big buck every time.
Right.
Depending on the girl. So let's take that out of the equation. Let's just work on the girls. And going back, the question you just asked her. So having a background in cattle, I started on a registered cattle operation. So I was looking at pedigrees in the 80s before it was a thing with deer.
Right.
So when it transitioned into, hey, we're going to breed this deer and here's the pedigrees, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to breed them like my cows.
Yeah, this makes sense.
It just, so now we went from cattle to deer back to cattle, so I just kind of, from her sitting there, because she was homeschooled, she'd been in my truck since she was 12 years old. I mean, just going to ranches, going here, going there, going to Austin. She's probably one of the few people her age that knows how a bill works.
Right.
We walk bills down through the halls there in Austin, either fighting or going, hey, we need this, or no, we don't need this. So she knows the process, and it's no different with the breeding. She's seen the process and seen the results and heard us or me and whoever's there with me going, and you're saying, you just mentioned the breeding, Chris McSpadden, and I give Chris props. He's back in the cattle industry. Mm-hmm. He's out. So guess what he's doing? He's taking the knowledge that he had from cattle first into the deer, now back to the cattle.
Right.
So, and I've sat with Chris for hours and hours and hours and hours and talked pedigrees, nothing but pedigrees.
Right.
Because it's so important when you're trying to create that animal that's going to be efficient. Again, it's efficiency. Why are you going to keep that doe that's going to raise you a 120-inch deer when you've got a girl standing next to her raising you a 200-inch deer? It makes no sense. So you're going to want to get rid of her and start keeping the girls off of that girl because there's something in there that works. And if you go back and look at the pedigree, you're going to find it.
Right.
You're going to find what it is. And we do the same with the cattle.
So with that, is there, like with whitetail, whether it's you have a doe or a buck, it typically will take you about at least 2, maybe 3 years to see how your production comes out. Because if you have a doe, you got to see if she even can have a baby. And then if to see what she produces is going to be another 3 years. So with a buck, if you're at 2 years old, you can kind of tell if they're going to be decent, but I prefer to see them at 3. But how long does it take you in the cattle world to see if what you bred worked? It's
almost the same, believe it or not. So, and that's another reason we're trying to take out the question marks. If you watch what you're breeding, and of course it doesn't always work. You get some, you go, well, man, what's the deal?
On paper it works.
It works on paper,
Yeah.
but it's not doing it in performance. So you're same deal. So we're breeding a cow. She's having a calf. 9 months later, she's having her calf. 6 months later, you're weaning the calf. A year later, or we background. Let me back up. So we wean it. We background it ourselves. We bring it into the pen. We feed them. We bunk break them where they're eating out of the bunks. We'll walk through them. We try to gentle them down, get the disposition right. So you do that for 45 days, 60 days maybe. Usually we do it for 2 months. We do ours for 60. And then we decide from that point, okay, who's going in the feedlot, who's staying, but we're already weighing. We're already bringing them through the scale. We're seeing what they're doing, how are they performing on the feed, and doing this and that. So then we go, okay, well, these are going to the feedlot. These are going to the sale. These are doing, the heifers we're keeping. We make all our decisions on what we're doing. So now you're, a year and a half? And then you got another year of feeding if you put that steer into the feedlot. So now you've got, another 12 months of feeding it. Whenever that steer goes in, now you got to butcher it and see how your ribeye grades. So we've had some steers that we thought, man, look at that steer. Man, he looks great. He looks fantastic. But we're judging with eyes. We're not judging with the ribeye until the final step. And then we get the meat back and we look at it, or I'll call the plant because I can't wait, because they butcher it and then it hangs for 21 days. So I'm calling going, hey, how did that ribeye grade? And they're like, it's high choice. And I'm like, well, man. So then we're going back, or you call and go, oh no, man, this is prime. I mean, this is prime. This one, and we had one, 2-3 months ago?
Yeah.
She actually called us and she goes, hey, the lady there at the butcher place, she knows what we're doing. And it's great to have that relationship with them. She knows we're a small producer, but she calls Madison and she goes, hey, I'm just letting you know, this one was high choice. She goes, I could, I don't know what happened or something, just letting you know. So, you can, before it even comes back, that this one didn't perform like, I know what you're looking for.
Right.
And again, that relationship is great because they know what we want. And they're a small butcher place, and she told Madison, I don't think this is what you're looking for, but I know it's not, but just letting you know. So now we're going back. Okay. Who is a mama? What does she do? Why this? Why this? Why this? Did the last one, how did the last steer do? But we got to wait another year and a half to get that next steer.
Right.
So do you wait? Normally we go, okay, let's see what this next one does. But if it doesn't perform, who was the bull? Is it that make a difference in the bull? Well, again, I just told you it shouldn't because we're raising mamas.
Right.
So more than likely she's on the trailer. She's getting gone. So yeah, it's a 2-3 year process.
Yeah. And at minimum. And then, so you're saying you have no bulls on the property. So how long, or how do you choose what semen to breed to? If
Pure
quote
pedigree.
unquote,
Pure
bulls?
EPDs and pedigrees, which the EPDs is really cool on the cattle because it's an expected progeny difference. So it'll tell you, okay, this, and it's just a suggestion. Right. Okay, this calf, when this cow has this calf, her calves should be on the birth weight is going to be lower than the average, which is what you want. But yet the weaning weight is going to be higher than average. So we do everything off of EPDs. I mean, she studies EPDs like, and I've gotten lazy because she does it for me.
She does it.
Yeah, she does it for me. So she's able to do it and she'll go, hey, Dad, look, this one throws light calves. And I've gotten, like I said, I know how to use them and I know how to read them, but she does it so much now that she'll say, hey, this bull right here, he's throwing light calves, but he's weaning this and they're doing this and their yearling weight is this and da-da-da-da-da-da. I think we need to breed this and this is going to tie in here and we're going to have this bull top and bottom. And we pay attention to sales, just like you do with anything you're selling. Right. I don't care if it's cattle, dogs, deer. What's the market?
Oh, for sure.
The market is what drives what you do. So she stays on sales all the time and goes, hey, this bull is really doing well. It's a hot buck.
Yeah.
So what's selling?
Right.
So she'll say, hey, this line is doing really well. So that allows us to bring that line in or down the road, we can go, okay, we got this, and this. So we're building pedigrees off of also what's the market is doing.
Right. And it's addicting. Like,
Bad.
I've been out of deer for 2 years and I still watch sales.
Yeah.
Dude,
Like,
I'll stay up
whatever.
late watching those things. And even like pedigrees, I'm like, what am I doing? Where does my life become at the age of 25? And all my friends are like, oh, we went out last Friday. And I'm like, I'm sitting at home on our TV with 4 pedigrees up there talking to my dad. I'm like, what the heck?
No matter if you're trying to rebuild your current website that sucks, or if you're starting from the ground up, Droptown Studios would love to give you a free estimate on what your new website build could be with us. Go to Droptown Studios today, and you can see other websites that we build for other clients. We look forward to talking to you soon about your new website. But I think that's the difference too, is like earlier when you were talking about it and like, you're like, well, I didn't go to school, I didn't do this. I'm like, yeah, but you're the one I would trust.
Yeah.
Like I know so many guys that have gotten into the exotic industry with the ranch wildlife management degree or whatever else. And they'll go dart a Nubian ibex that needs to be trimmed in August at noon, and they give him like 3 cc's of BAM, and you're like,
what are you doing?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
You know, they fry their brains.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, what? But he's got a degree.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well. But yeah, it's the school of hard knocks. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can't learn until you just do it.
Until you do it.
And it's like I told Dad, I talked to someone that went to school in Kingsville, and they told me they were doing that to make our deer better and make our ranch better. That's why they went. And I told her, I said, I understand that. I'm glad you did, because there's times where I think, man, I should have gone to school. And then I realized I know more than they know, because she doesn't know our ranch.
Right.
They haven't grown up half their life on a ranch, so they don't know the aspects of what it takes. Right. Yeah, you need to burn. Yeah, you need to do all these things, but not here. We never burn at our ranch, ever. Because we don't need to.
Don't even light a cigarette out there.
No,
not right
not
now.
now.
And I like to burn. I'm a pyro. I mean, I like burning pastures, but we don't have the need right now. Would there be a time? Maybe. But it's like she told, and I heard the conversation, and she said, well, how do you even know what we're doing? How are you going to tell me, oh, you need to do this, this, and this, when he said, you haven't even been on the ranch? And that's kudos to her, because she understands, because she's heard me say it over and over and over. You don't know until you know what their goals are.
Right.
What do you want to do? You know, what's the ranch? Which direction do you want to run? And then we can work with that and go, okay, well, then we need to do this, this, and this.
Right.
Do you have cattle? Well, yeah. Well, what's your stocking rate? Do you want to run cattle? Do you want to run a light cattle? Do you want longhorns that look pretty in the front pasture, so people see them when they're driving down the road? Or do you want beef cattle? So without knowing what that ranch is doing, it's real hard to say, hey, you know, you need to be doing this. And that's the one thing I say she's learned is to stop for a minute and go, okay, what do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do first, and then we'll go and look at what direction we need to run with it.
Right. Yeah, because I think, and that's one thing I've always respected about y'all and your ranch, whether it's the hunters that were like, hey, we're going to come in and shoot 6-axis, or if it's, you know, making a sale or doing this, is like, you're like, no, let's do what's best.
Right.
Let's not just make the sale.
Right. Right.
But
we try to do what's best for the ranch.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
So switching kind of cattle to whitetail, what was the first high fence ranch you were on?
Oh, man.
Many moons ago.
You know, it was in the late 80s. It had to have been 88, 89. And this is going to kind of sound funny, but the difference, the roads we've traveled. I was on a ranch. We had 350 mama cows. We were leasing for hunting. It wasn't a big deal. And like I said, I could see the transition coming, you know, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a big thing, because you would hear of people taking a deer lease and taking a cattle lease so they wouldn't run cattle, paying the rancher to not run cattle, you know, because they didn't want to mess with the cows. They didn't want cows on it. They didn't want the ranch hands driving around checking cows. They didn't want cowboys. They didn't want helicopters gathering cattle. And I've seen it. I've seen people go, yeah, we'll take the hunting, but we'll also take the cattle. And the rancher go, well, you're going to run cattle? No. And when you hear that, you're like, this guy's doubling up on his money just to be left alone. I mean, and it just baffles my mind, but people do it.
Right.
So I was on a cattle ranch, and I got offered a job and on another ranch. And I know this is going to sound silly, but I got offered $50 a month more. $50. So I went to the cow guy and I was like, hey, man, I got offered a job and pretty good and, and this and that. And I said, they offered me a little more money. I'm not trying to beat you up, for money, but well, how much did they offer you? I said, $50 a month more. He's like, man, I can't do that. And, and I'm thinking, dude, it's $50, I mean, I'm sure you spend that, on beer, coffee,
right.
breakfast tacos, in a month. And so at the time I'm thinking, well, am I not worth that $50? So I was like, okay, great. And it kind of got, hair on the back of my neck standing up. I just went, whatever, great, I'll go here. Well, the ranch was a ranch that was high fence that was concentrating on deer. It had cattle, but they were secondary. So it kind of switched. That was part of the beginning of the, okay, here's the transition, and so, and it was fenced. It was 2,200 acres, I believe it was. And we focused on deer. And I mean, it was not a 180, but almost. Okay, what are we doing now? Now we're looking, this place, we ran water lines. We cleared out some pasture. We were growing, we tried to grow alfalfa in Duval County, because we thought it was good for deer. And the guy's like, I want to grow alfalfa. And you're like, what? And he's like, I want to grow alfalfa. Let's try it. And we planted alfalfa and we planted oats and we planted hay grazer and we had food plots with just strips, and we would sit there and watch what the deer were going to. We were irrigating them. And I don't mean it was center pivot, but we had sprinklers, those big, tall garden sprinklers. And it was like, hey, turn the sprinklers on at night, turn them off in the morning. We're going to water all night and see what happens. And so that was kind of the beginning of, man, this is serious. They're putting a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort to grow that one deer that they're going to go shoot in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Back then it was 5 years. 5 years was, okay, that's a mature deer,
right?
A 5-year-old. So yeah, that was high fence. And that was the first time that I was like, man, okay, we're trying to, this is serious, And so you put a lot of effort into it because they were putting a lot of money into it. So to see that and go, all right, I see where this is going. Cattle are secondary here. We did, like I said, we had some mama cows, but it's like, hey, we're going to work cattle whenever we're done hunting.
Do you remember what, like, let's say late 80s, early 90s, like what was a 160, 170 selling for?
Dude, you shot a 160, they'd have a parade in town. You killed a 170, a book deer. That was a true book deer. I mean, the traffic would stop. They'd hang it over the top of the truck and drive into town and drive to, Muy Grande and park out front. And there would be, you could tell when a deer came in. You would drive through town and there'd be a crowd of people around the bed of a pickup truck. And you'd be like, oh man, I got to go see what it is. So you'd pull in and go look at it. And I can remember specific deer, that would come in that you go, dang, that's a big old deer. I mean, and I remember the ranches they were shot at. That's how eat up with this stuff, that at the time, even now, I guess that you are when you are looking back on deer and you go, and I know guys that still, that, my friends that I can call and go, hey, you remember that deer? Now, oh yeah, they shot it on so-and-so ranch. And it'll be back in the early 90s. And they still remember these big deer because they were unheard of to shoot a 70 or an 80. Nobody was shooting 200s. They were almost unheard of, and there was ranches out there that, we hunted all around Freer, the DCRC, which was, it's now the Killam, the Tomas Ranch, this ranch, that ranch. And I could almost name them all. And, Lloyd Colby shot a deer that was in the 180s that became the new record at Muy Grande, and people just like, I mean, it was the biggest deer people ever seen.
Right.
So yeah, it was a big deal. 160 was a big deer, because they just weren't there.
Yeah. So did they even sell them, or was it just like you would grow it and be like, I'm going to shoot it, or my daughter's going to shoot it? Or
most of them back then were leases. There was, because it was still, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to be rude, but they were still the ranchers. They were still the original landowners. And so they were leasing it And it was deer that people started saying, okay, well, maybe we let that one go. Let's see him. But most of the time, we weren't asking how old it was. They were asking what it scored, and it was starting to transition into, hey, what happens if we let him go? But when you saw a 170 class deer, you didn't see him, so you killed him. My father-in-law shot a deer. Oh, and I should know the year, but I don't. It was late 70s, early 80s, maybe. 184 and change. It was in the top 5, typicals in Boone and Crockett.
Man,
sold the head. He needed money. He was a ranch manager on a ranch, large, low fence ranch. It was a deer. That's all it was. It was a deer, so he was like, and I asked him one day, I said, man, you sold that deer? He said, I needed a down payment for a car, and I had kids and I had a family and I needed money, and I worked on a ranch and I didn't make a lot of money. So I had an asset. Somebody wanted it, sold it, and went and bought a new car because I had to get my family around. So that was the thought process.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, look what I did. Like, I shot a deer. Just so happened to be big.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, and I think we've talked about it before, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but we always joked around and said, well, how do you grow big deer? Don't care about them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing. You don't have a ton of money poured into them, and you don't need to turn around a profit. You will grow big deer.
A guy told me a long time ago, and I know I've told you this because we talked about it here a few weeks ago, but that's what he told me. He said, you know how to grow big deer? And he had big deer. And I said, no, how? And he said, you remove all monetary value from them. And he didn't sell hunts. He hunted him himself. His family hunted, but he didn't sell hunts. And he said, when you take that money off of that deer, he said, he's going to get big because you don't have to shoot him. You're not going, oh, well, I'd like to give him another year, but I got a hunter who needs a 160, and there he is. So kill him. And so you're going to give him another 2-3 years. It's evolved a lot, but there's still that money when somebody sees that 50, right. 60, 70, that could be a 70, 80, 90 in 2 or 3 years, go shoot him.
Right.
Because they need the money. Yeah.
So do you think a lot of things so far have tied together between whitetail and cattle? Does that same mindset go to cattle? Just take away monetary value for them and they'll do better?
Yeah. 100%. That's 100%. The registered cattle business is it's almost the same as a deer industry. I see what some of the registered cattle bring, and I'm just like, golly, so we've adopted the same thing. She just said it. We're taking the bulls and AI and I'm growing those mamas. We're building mamas. She's really gotten good at those pedigrees. We're building mama cows that other people are having to, or have already. So right. we're getting these pedigrees, but also the other thing is, which we've talked about, the embryos. That changes the game.
Yeah. Because
now I can buy an embryo and I have that cow. So you just jump everything.
Absolutely.
Now you got an embryo and you got that calf on the ground that's the exact same pedigree as that mama. Technically, it should be just as good, right?
Right. Yeah, theoretically.
And
so does that, in that aspect, is that the same thing of when, because I've heard it put when I was sitting in a buggy, and I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, but I heard Arthur from NT tell the guy, like, you can buy and build this doe. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is you're buying my time because I already have it.
Sure.
And so when you're doing the embryo, and earlier you were saying, well, we decide which one goes to sale, which one goes to feedlot. Do you keep any of those behind so you can put an embryo in? Because it would theoretically just be a surrogate, right?
You need your donors.
Yeah.
Yep. You do need your donors. Yep. And we've got some longhorns on the ranch that are those cattle I talked about that stand out by the highway. And we've talked about, okay, well, if we get into the embryos, there's my recips right there. We're going to dump them in the longhorns, let them have a baby. And all of a sudden that, $500 longhorn calf is a pretty good Angus calf.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that's what I remember when I was very, very ignorant into all of this, because in my mind, I was talking to Robert Williams with his daughter and everything. And I remember going through and driving through the pens, and she was like, these are the only genetics we have. No one else has them. But then they were talking about selling embryos. And again, I was young, but I tell my staff, and I try to live by the same thing. I think that's why I started a podcast, is go, as long as you mean it, there's no stupid question.
Right.
And I asked her, or Mary Lou, I was like, if this is so special, why would you sell it? Because it's special because it's only one of a kind, right? She kind of just looked at me. I don't even know if she remembers that. And she was like, but that's what I thought was
anyway,
like, yeah.
Next one.
Because I was like, if you have 20 of them, wouldn't that devalue it?
Yeah.
But I mean, to a point, no, now that I've been into it more, because again, people want to buy it. So, but again, if you only have one and next year she dies in birth or hits the fence or EHD comes through, whatever.
Now you have another one that you can,
Yeah. And then if you didn't pull them, then she's just gone.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I remember asking that question. She's kind of like turned her head and be like, what do you mean? But now I'm on her boat as I'm like, no, sell it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole point but it's that, again, how many do you sell?
Right.
You don't want to flood the market because then everybody's got it, but then you want that, you got to make money.
Right.
Or you're trying to that's everybody's goal, is to try to make money. So yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. Because I remember looking back at that and I felt, she didn't mean to, so I doubt she listens to these, but Mary Lou, if you're listening, I don't mean this in a rude way. But she looked at me like, what do you mean, idiot? Like, just sell as much as you can.
Shut up and look at the deer.
Yeah. And I will say, like, going to their place when I did, it was unlike any other thing I've ever seen. Like, you'd go into their 3-year-old pen and there's 100, 200 deer, and you're like, But so now that's the first high fence place you went on, what's the first, like, high fence but whitetail breeding where like you were doing proper breeding, not just out in the pasture, like in pens or AI or live covering?
That was probably about 10 years later. I was working for a guy. I was managing his hunts, and I've always done this, and I don't want to say I've sacrificed. Everybody goes, oh man, that guy, back then, the ranch managers, we didn't make a lot of money. We did it because you loved it, and you did it because this is what we wanted to do. And I tell Madison all the time that, hey, you got to do this. If you're going to do this, you got to love what you're doing. Because it's hard work. It's a lot of work. Until you reach that point to where you go, hey, okay, now I can sit back and I can say, hey, Madison, can you get some pedigrees for me?
Right.
But you just have to love what you do. So you don't make a lot of money, or didn't, and back then it was even worse.
Right.
They were like, oh, it's just cows. Oh, you're just a cowboy. You're a cow hand. You're a ranch hand. You're a ranch foreman. The ranch manager jobs were few and far between because the ranchers were still there. And this is what I'm talking about. So the ranch owners were the original ranch owners. How many ranches have you been on where the guy says, oh, I just bought this ranch 5 years ago?
Yep. Okay.
So they're in whatever city they live in making money. And that's the situation I'm in,
Right.
So they're going, hey, I need somebody to run this ranch. So now, okay, he's not there. So, and I'll say this, from the rooftop, I shout it from the rooftops. The example I use is, why are you going to take a suitcase with $1 million in it, sit a guy on it and say, hey, take care of this $1 million for me, and give him a bologna sandwich every day?
Right.
Sooner or later, it's going to be like, I've had enough of this bologna, and I'm sitting on your $1 million, and this is what I'm worth, is this bologna? So no. So now it's very specialized because they're going, hey, I need this guy that can run my ranch, that can do this, that can take care of it, that I can trust.
Right.
So what's it going to take?
Right.
Well, it's going to take more than $800 a month. And so again, it goes back to what you just said. What's the value of your property? What's the value of your deer? You're putting a value on it.
Right.
So the value, and Macy talked about the tools, and it was fantastic. I heard him and I was like, go Macy. It's the tools. The most important tools on that ranch are the people that you have on the ranch.
Absolutely.
To take care of your assets, because they should love it. They should love the ranch. They should love the animals and take care of everything that they're doing for you.
And they should feel entitled to make decisions, not
100%,
be put on a leash.
100%. And I'm going to tell you something I heard a long time ago too. It's really funny. had a guy tell me, and I'm not going to say his name because he's still out there doing his thing. And I love this guy to death. And this was, I don't know how long ago. It was a long time ago. He says, we were sitting on a ranch, and it had to have been 20, 25 years ago. And we'd been driving around, and we were doing some stem counts. And for anybody who doesn't know stem counts, call Macy. Macy will tell you what a stem count is. So we would go around and we count the bites off of the brush, and we've got a clicker. So you're counting the bite. Okay, bite, click, 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 click. No, click. So you have an area, and you're seeing how many deer have bitten off of this brush. And then you get your brush and you go first tier, second tier, third tier. Are they eating your Wyakon? Are they eating your Cenizo? Are they eating, if you've got whitetail eating sage, you got a problem. Mm. If you got bites off of Cenizo, you got a problem. You better start shooting some does. So, you start, this is what your deal is. So we've been doing this, and we're sitting in the truck, drinking a bottle of water, sweating, walking through brush, hoping not to get bit by a snake, and he goes, you know how you grow big deer? He said, and I said, grow big deer? He said, no. He said, you know how you become an expert in big deer? And I said, how? He said, you go out. He said, you make several $1 million. He said, you buy a ranch, and all of a sudden you're an expert. Mm. And I went, yeah, I get it. And nothing against the landowners, nothing against the ranchers.
Right.
But, that old saying, stick with what you know. You do you to be able to do this, but get your guy and let him do his job.
Right.
You get the best person that you can afford or you can get to do that job, whether it's whoever, Macy, if you need to contract somebody, I'm right here. I'm Team Macy. Call Macy. Yeah. There's a lot of biologists out there that do this privately. And I just use him as an example, but I've mentioned him on other podcasts because he's old school. He's been doing it so long, and he wants to take care of the ranch. Mm. And so he's going to ask you, like he said, what are your goals? When it's funny because, the guy we work for, he told Madison a few months ago, she was talking to the owner of the ranch, and he goes, your dad was the weirdest interview I've ever had done in my life. And she said, what are you talking about? She goes, he asked me, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What's the ranch going? Where do you want, what direction do you want the ranch to? He said, nobody's ever asked me that. But I was very concerned with it. I mean, I don't want to know what I'm stepping into. What do you want done? And then I thought about it, and that was the other thing that he was like, he said he didn't even give me an answer. He just said, okay, let me think about it. Mm. And I said, well, because I wanted to know if I fit. Right. Because if I don't fit, why am I going to do this? I'm wasting your time, wasting my time when we could be taking this ranch or any place and saying, okay, let's go in the right direction. Let's get this done. And there's a lot of factors that people say, oh yeah, I'm going to go work here. And then they hate it. I don't like the town. I don't like the people. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't like this area. I've worked in East Texas. I've worked everywhere. And, I had to think about it real hard. Do I want to be here? Is it going to make me happy? Is this what I want to do? Mm. And is what they're doing is what I want to do.
Right.
So, there's a lot that goes into it, but, that was his saying, was, make a whole bunch of money and buy a ranch. And all of a sudden you're an expert.
Right. Yeah. That location deal's true. Cause I told Daniel, I was like, we're going to move drop time to my land in Brady. And he's like, no.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. Right. Yeah. So it does affect everything.
100%.
Everything you do, so.
Yeah. And that's, I get asked, and I guess I find it nice, I guess you will, or like I feel flattered that people would ask me, but people will, like ranch owners will call me and go, what does a ranch manager make?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that's a
loaded question.
Loaded question.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Cause there's different factors that go in, right? So for anyone, the way that I break it down with my uneducated assumption on it is I just go, okay, well, there's a lot of, like, do they live on the ranch? Are you covering all expenses? Cause I mean, if you cover house, phone, electric, water, all this stuff, that's a pretty good chunk of like where like my money goes to every month.
But should it matter?
So that's the other part is it's the tools of the trade that they need. But then I go, okay, well, like for the exotic industry, because that's what they call for me, because I don't know anything about cattle, is I'll go, okay, well, if they're good and they save one animal, how much are they worth now?
Right.
But if you got some young kid that doesn't know how to save an animal or doesn't know when something's
Darting stuff at
respirating or
noon.
darting or doing this, and
Yeah.
he cost you, I said, well, how much did that employee cost you?
Right.
Because I said, you can afford anyone you want. That's the
Sure.
difference. Like,
Sure.
there's a very much difference of what can I afford for an employee versus what should I pay them.
Right.
And then there's other people, it's
Right.
like, do they work off of a set salary? Because y'all know as much as I do, when you work on a ranch, you don't stop. Like, it is a 24/7,
Day and night.
365.
Yep.
And then on top of that is commission. Some people work off commission, some people don't. And so I'm like, man, I can't tell you like, hey, pay this guy this much. Or the average I've seen. And I was like, you know how many ranch owners have ever opened up their laptop and go, here's my P&Ls?
Right.
0. No one shows me that stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I can talk people through it, but I'm like, hey, it's more so because, you hear ranch managers that make, $800 a month.
Yep.
And then you hear that make
6 figures.
Multiple 6 figures.
Yeah.
And then they go, how do they do it?
Yeah.
Because they know what they're doing.
Yep.
The owner's buying time, but he's also buying assurance because at a certain point, and one thing we say when we go to ranches is because could any ranch owner go buy equipment, do their own stuff, have their own person dedicated to it? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the assurance is drop time's not going anywhere.
Right.
Like I will always have to show up and represent drop time because that is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Now that person can take what he learned at your ranch, which this can apply to anything, but he can take what he learned at your ranch and his name is still the same, whether he's at DEA or ABC or XYZ. Mm-hmm. And he can go here to here to here. And then now you're stuck with all this equipment you don't know how to run, but you paid him to figure it out.
Right.
And it, that could go into any breeding or anything.
Sure. Yeah. Cause you're exactly right. I mean, I can take my knowledge anywhere and go anywhere.
Yeah.
And am I happy? Yeah. I love where we're at. I absolutely love that ranch. I love what we're doing. The owner is fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, he just loves Madison to death. And that's important to me also. That's a big deal for me. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Cause that knowledge can go. Your state is going to stay right here.
Right.
Their knowledge can go,
mm-hmm.
So now you're in that position going, hey, what do I need to do to keep these guys here?
Right.
And it's no different on a ranch. You're paying for the time and the experience. Like she talked about this morning, there's a lot of kids, you can go hire a kid out of college. And I've interviewed 100 interns and I'm just like, okay.
Right.
There's a lot of non-practical experience because kids aren't being raised on a ranch anymore.
Right.
They want to do it, but they need to learn how to do it. And sometimes that's the hard part about it is having them learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's where we go into, like, I try to have conversations with them and we're small enough, but like, I know everybody has different goals and objectives and opinions, and I won't say anyone's name because I don't want to give away personal information.
Right.
But it's like, I still ask, do you want a raise or a bonus?
Right.
What's better for you?
Sure.
And so like, cause Daniel, he likes to work on cars. He wants X, Y, and Z. So he might want cash now so I can go buy that alternator. Or I can buy this and that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I don't know how to work on cars. So I don't know what you're doing in your little car, but it's like, that might change year to year or month to month. And so like, I try to still ask because I know for me being a small company, young guy, like this is my only company. I don't have another one funding it is I'm going, hey, I need them to stay. Cause like I can't also run audio over there if I'm sitting here yapping.
Well,
and so like I have to
thing.
figure out and try to ask, and I don't know, they may lie to me, they may not tell me, but I try to keep everyone happy because I realize how important it is. Or like I had a guy when I ran my ranch, he goes, all right, Austin, and this is right before I went to Africa on a mission trip, like 2 days before. And he goes, I want to work less, but I want to raise. And I said, no shit, me too. And I said, but that's not how the world works.
Are you hired?
Yeah.
That's everybody's dream.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, can you just pay me double, but I work half the time?
I got in from a hunt here, not too long. I guess we were turkey hunting a couple weeks or a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I got in, I walked into the house. We hunted, we had dinner, we're entertained. The routine. You've been there. And I walk into the house and my wife is sitting there reading a book and she goes, we don't have any water. And goes back to reading her book.
I just
and I'm like, what?
I was like,
water well's out. Just went out about 30 minutes ago, but I didn't want to call you because you're with hunters. He's reading, and I'm like,
and it's 9:30.
Yeah, let me grab a flashlight and go see what the cows broke.
Right.
So the water's going somewhere, and sure enough, oh, well, there's a broken water line. So it goes back to what you're saying. It's 24/7.
Right.
There's no stopping.
Like so our female giraffe, we just recently found out that she's not pregnant through blood. And so I get a call from Brittany to make other steps forward to figure it out. So she tells me that I'm going to have to pick up a fecal sample from both of them 3 times a week till like middle of May. And I'm like,
for 3 months.
I'm like, Brittany, I love you to death. But I just, in that point of phone call, I was like, I really just want to strangle you. Now.
But her answer is, okay.
I was like, okay,
yes,
Brittany. I was like, okay, Brittany, I get it. So now, in between everything, I'm like, oh, wait, now I have to go spend 2 hours over there.
And watch them poop.
And watching them like this. And then they'll move and I'm move up in the buggy and I'm just like, but it's more time.
Yeah.
Right.
And nobody else is there to do it. It's me.
Right. Yeah, because that's the other part is you can have them do it. They're going to charge you $1,500 a
Sure,
day, or
sure.
you know, hey,
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
just. You want me to sit and watch your giraffes for $1,500 a day? I'll come out there and collect poop. You know.
But it's things that nobody sees, nobody knows, nobody has to know. It is what it is. It's just part of. Hey, yeah, we love being here, we love our job, so let's just get it done.
Right.
Just do it.
Right.
So yeah, that goes back to doing it. But we're herding cats, but I guess I got you off on tangent. But yeah, it was about 10 years I got into the deer. Where I got on a place that I wasn't on the place. They asked me to come help. So I was working for a guy and I had heard there was some breeders, and you hear, oh man, they're starting to breed deer. I don't know if you remember the sale they used to have in San Antonio. It's a stock show.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first sales that they, had back then. And back then it was cool. You could have a deer sale at a San Antonio stock show and rodeo. Come on. It's a big deal. If try that today, they'd probably run you off the parking lot,
for sure.
But anyway.
Oh, that's like at Texas Trophy Hunters. They used to have a whitetail in a portable trailer that you could walk up and see with antlers on his head.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think that's going to pass with Texas Parks and Wildlife
try
nowadays?
That today.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would have it at the show. Yeah. So it's funny because I told the guy, and I was kind of consulting for him, and I told him, I said, hey, you need to build some pens and get some deer right now. I said, this thing's going to explode. No, I don't think I want to mess with that. I was like, man, it's going to get crazy. You need to do it right now. I said, there's some guys right up the road here that just started. I said, let me put you in contact with them. And I said, you need to get into it. No, I'm not going to do that. Well, I started helping a place, and it was in the late 90s when I first put my hands on a deer. And it was a rodeo. I mean, it was so different from what you see today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I almost hate to tell stories on how we worked deer because it was crazy because we didn't know any better.
Well, it shows how shameless plug for the deer industry. It shows how much we've grown and how much care
we've
about these
evolved
now. Yeah.
How much we have evolved from day one till today. Air conditioned facilities. It's just amazing. He was asking me on the way up. She asked me something about working deer back then. And I said, and they still might do it. I said, I know we don't, but we would take a buggy. We took a buggy and we welded on the front of it and we put 4x8 sheets of plywood with wings so we could open it and go down the alley
and push them. And you're walking next to the buggy holding that wing, and all of a sudden it just boom, boom, boom. Keep going. We got to get them in. Ropes down the alleys with pulling gates, trying to get them, because we didn't know how to design pens. How do you design pen? I don't know. You build a pen and have alleys. Yeah, you look at cattle pens and go, the big circle in an alley.
It works. Let's do it like that, So, the last set of pens that we built, that we designed, it was nice. One guy could move 100 deer by himself. We had gates everywhere. We had gates in the alleys, short gates. So it was as he was pushing, he was just boom, 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 boom. We have hides. We had hides with the people behind them. The deer come by, you close it, push it, and not push them with a buggy down the alley going, hey, working cattle with them,
Oh.
So we just designed it where it's less stress, which, cattle are the same way. We do the same with our cats. We don't use hot shots. We don't yell. We don't holler. Me and Madison brought every cow in on the ranch the other day, separated some calves. I had to tag some calves, brought them in, separated everything, pulled some steers out. I mean, we did a whole deal. We started at 8:00 in the morning. We were done by 10:30, and it was just me and her. And it's just quiet, slow, that's what you want. We didn't know that back then. I mean, we were cowboying deer. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy to think we'd go in a room full of bucks with a shield, have them pin you against the wall when they get mad, when they'd had enough. Hardhorn.
Yeah.
Not a velvet, and hardhorn, trying to cut deer and have a buck just pin you against in a corner because he's mad and you've got a aluminum shield, I told Madison, I went to work on a ranch, we went to go help a guy work deer and he passed out flak jackets, here, put this on. It's like, what do you mean? Here, put this on. We're going in that room. We got to cut some deer. And it's like, okay. And I was too dumb to go, no, I needed the money. All right, I guess we're working, give me that shield and give me that, it's just crazy to think the way we worked deer.
Right.
But yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, now they come in and, like you said, air-conditioned room.
Sure.
Floor drops out. They get a massage.
Yeah.
Get a little B12 shot. And,
well, because of money, the value of them has changed. And plus, you want to do what's right for the animal.
Right.
And we just didn't know. We had no idea, but as it evolved, like everything else, it evolves to, you can find cowboys today. I mean, there was a time when I was working cattle during the summer and guiding hunts during the winter. I was pretty much working for myself. And so, I can cowboy with the best of them. I mean, I roped cattle all over South Texas. I wouldn't unhook my gooseneck. I had catch dogs and I had horses and I caught cattle all over South Texas. Do I want to do it now? No. I'd much rather have a siren and some cake.
Right.
Cause it evolves and there's still some cowboys out there that do that work every day. But the price of cattle now, it makes you want to be a cowman, not a cowboy. I don't want you to roughhouse my cattle. Hey, no, don't yell. They're coming. It's okay. Let them come in. So it evolves. And I feel like the deer industry evolved just the same,
Right.
It's got to where, hey, we can't do that. Plus you want to be, gentler on the deer. You just realize that,
right.
Hey, they do better when you take it easy on them.
Yeah, and I was always told, because I would get nervous, right? Like, you go dart a bongo cow or a giraffe, giraffe's a whole other league of its own. But it's like you go dart them and you're like, oh no, this thing's worth $100,000.
Sure.
This thing's worth $500,000. This thing's whatever. And you get a little nervous. And so I would do the same thing. It's like, hey, we just bought this animal, this doe or whatever out there. And you're like, I don't want to dart her. I know what she's worth. I know what we paid. And you're like, and I had a guy tell me, he goes, dart them all like they're the same.
Yeah.
Don't. It's kind of like when you're hunting, right? Don't look at the antlers. Look at the spot you want to hit.
Yeah. Yep.
And now, then that also goes, okay, well, what's the baseline of you keep everything the same, right? Like, don't just be like, hit them with the dart and, we'll get to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it definitely is nice to see it evolve and it's cool. And that's why, I like to have the stories and maybe one day we'll have to have 3 of the OGs up here and
that'd be fun.
Tell some of the old stories. But
dude, that'd be fun. Yeah, that would be great.
Whitetail and fallow breeders. We know that as summer approaches, your animals are going to be growing out their antlers. So if you would like us at Droptown Studios to market them with photos or videos, make sure you visit our website, fill out the form, and reach out to us. And exotic breeders, we know that you have a lot of sales coming up in August as well. So if you want to start promoting yourself at a trade show or put anything in the auction catalog, make sure you give us a call and we can help you market your exotics as well. But mentioning of the unseen work, mentioning of working deer and everything, one of the things that is going on at the ranch is being held up by CWD. So can you kind of talk about how where you got to with CWD and what y'all's story is?
We don't have CWD. Right. Never tested positive. Don't have a problem with it. The problem is the testing. As you well know the rules, hey, if you don't have X amount of deer die, you have to test one to 5. So for every deer that doesn't die, you got to test 5, right? So,
just so I want to make it clear to the listeners, what you're saying with the current rules,
yes.
If you keep your deer alive, you're punished
100%.
And now you have to go test more deer.
Right. Make it make sense. I don't know. But I don't make the rules. I've tried to make the rules. I mean, we've gone to Austin and there's a group of guys that, again, your OG guys that we've sat in Austin and, you look at how much legislation Macy's worked on and, he does it because he cares about what he's doing. and he sees that, okay, now his son is involved. Macy's son is involved, and he's thinking, this has got to stay going.
Right.
You know, we've got to protect this for his family. And I feel the same way. You know, I mean, you've got to, I had the pleasure of talking to a commissioner, you know, and I've worked for commissioners. I've worked for commissioners, and I had the pleasure of talking to a commissioner a couple years ago. And that was all I told him. Just happened to meet up with him at a hunting show. And I told him, I said, look, I said, I said, you got a minute? And he's like, sure. And I said, I'm not going to holler and scream and jump up and down. I said, I just want you to understand. I said, when you're sitting up there at that table, I said, I want you to see the faces. And she was with me. I said, she works on a ranch. I said, that has deer. I said, she makes a living. I said, my entire family makes a living. I said, we depend on this. And this is part of what makes my salary. I said, and we're pretty good at what we do. And this is the reason that we get hired to do what we do. I said, whether it's cattle or deer or bongos or whatever, it doesn't matter. This is, at the time, this is what's paying me. I said, this feeds my family. I said, there's so many families that make a living doing this. I said, and I don't want you to think that it's just a deer. I said, the trickle effect that happens when anything, little thing affects this, I said, is so huge. So, and it's happening now. I mean, there's a couple hundred breeders left. You know, I was on a phone call Friday, with the EWA. I'm on a legislative committee for the EWA, and we were on a phone call. Guess what Oklahoma's doing? Releasing deer out into the wild with SS markers. Low fence, doesn't matter. They're following the science, right?
Right.
So what does that do for everybody else that has not been following the science? So what do you do now? They're going to sit back and go, oh, we made a little mistake. No, they're going to stick to their guns and go, no, we've been right all along. They're wrong. But Oklahoma has created $1 billion industry overnight when they said, hey, we're going to follow the science. And if these SS markers, this is what you're saying, these SS markers, you know, are less susceptible to CWD, we're good with it because science has proven over and over and over that this is okay. Right. So now they can release deer. They can do this. How many breeders do you know have moved to Oklahoma?
A lot.
And so now Oklahoma's going, come on. So there's breeders going up there. They're starting hunting operations. So what kind of money's going to Oklahoma? Feed, employees, feeders, fence. I mean, you name it.
Right.
It's going that way. And so you think hunters aren't going to say, hey, let's go hunt in Oklahoma and let's go visit a casino while we're there. We'll take our families. We're going to hang out afterwards. And their economy is going to be booming. So when you look at the big picture, it's like, okay, this industry's going away. And this is what I told the guy. I said, look, just know that it's more than that. There's a whole industry here that is here that just remember there's faces behind it.
Right.
You know, that are
you're
doing
not
this.
just a breeder number.
No. It's not a permit number. I said, there's faces. I said, I'm not the owner. I said, but I work for someone who this is what he chooses to do. And we're good at what we do. So he's entrusting us, like we just talked about, he's entrusting us to do the right thing and make sure that everything is okay with Parks and Wildlife, because there's a lot of regulations, a lot of paperwork. So this is where we're at. And he just went, okay, yeah, no, I get it. Did it matter? I don't know. Probably not. But I was able to talk to him, and I didn't want to yell and jump up and down because I don't want to be that guy. And they go, all of them guys are like that. They all yell and scream, and they're always mad. Well, yeah, we're always upset because of what's going on. And what we're talking about is a good example. We don't have CWD. Never tested positive. Never. We have a closed herd. We don't bring deer in. We don't really sell deer. Everything goes into the pasture, right? Because we're improving our genetics. That's our goal, is to improve our genetics and to hunt. Bottom line. So it's a testing deal. They told us we needed X amount of tests. We sent the tests, got the results back, and they said, no, now you need this many. So they moved the goalpost. We're like, okay. So now, by the time we did that, we're having fawns. And it's like, well, these girls are having fawns on the ground. I mean, I can't bring them in and test. And a lot of people don't realize that. Well, just go test them. Well,
Right.
no, because of the health of the animal, we can't. I mean, we could, but
Well, also, if you run them through, they're going to get stressed. They're going to push their stillborns out.
Yes.
They're not going to have the baby,
Yes.
which tell me how that benefits the herd.
right. So we put it off because of the health of the animal. Okay, we're going to do it this point. And they gave us a number, and we did a few more, sent it in. They got the results in, everything good. She called me and said, hey, we just got an email. Results are back. Everything's negative. We're good. We can start moving some deer, and we were just trying to move deer in the pasture. We weren't even selling deer. And she said, so we can start planning on what we need to do. And I said, okay. And, I don't know, a couple hours later, you get on to do a permit.
Yeah, I get on because he was like, hey, let's start moving these bucks. And we'd already had it planned out because by that time, it had been 2 years
Yeah.
that we'd been shut down.
That we'd been fighting this.
So to make sure that's clear, you were shut down, cannot move, cannot bring
Non-movement
revenue,
qualified.
can't
Non-movement
bring
nothing.
qualified.
Not
Yeah.
even to our own ranch. There was zero movement.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, we're sitting on bucks and we're just keep looking. And the whole time, I'm just like, man, these deer, they need to be out. Because then on our pasture, it's more, I don't want to say work, but it is because now we're like, okay, now we can't turn out. We were counting on 20 bucks a year.
Right.
Now we can't. So what do we do? So now we have to scale back our hunts because we don't have that. So I get in and I'm like, okay, let's go. We're going to release 40. We're good. We already like planning hunting season. We're like, okay. I get in and it's still non-movement qualified. And I'm like, what in the world? So I look. So they took our 45 test, turned it around and said, hey, by the way, since you didn't get enough last year, you need to test a full herd. And I'm like, there's no way. And so our number went from testing 45 deer to 97 deer is what we have. And I was like, so I called and I talked to one of the kids in the office and he goes, I mean, everybody's gonna have to do it sooner or later, so you might as well do it now. And I told him, I said, that's not how this is gonna work. You're not gonna tell me that I have to do it because everybody's gonna have to do it.
Right.
I followed your rules, so give me something back. And he goes, nope, it's already been done.
And so that's how it worked.
And I told Dad, I hung up the phone and I called Dad. I said, we're going to test full herd. I said, there's nothing around it. I said, he just told me there's nothing to do.
There's nothing you can do.
And that's currently where y'all sit. Like this happened like last month.
Yes.
Yeah, that's currently where we set
We
in
just tested the whole
September.
herd. Yeah.
Yeah, in September, that's when we found out. And then we just tested full herd back in March with Dr. Kiner. Get it done.
Yeah.
So,
And then y'all should by May here or
I'm
something.
hoping late April,
Yeah.
hoping.
hoping by late April we'll know something,
Right.
depending on, I don't know how, they shouldn't be backed up.
Yeah.
There's no breeders left.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I remember going, hey, send your test in now because everybody's moving does,
100%.
and it was March or February and you might get the results back in April, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many permits are left. I mean, last I heard it was 205 or 208 or, anybody listening, let me know.
Yeah.
Shoot me a text and let me know how many permits are left. I've asked the question several times. Nobody gives me an answer. I guess it shouldn't be so hard to find out that
Right.
answer, but
And we've talked about it before. There's multiple breeders that have 3, 4,
Sure,
5 different numbers.
sure.
So in reality, it might be 150.
it might be 150 that are, but I sure would like to know what that number is,
Yeah.
to know how many active permits
Right.
are out there that people actually have deer in their pens. Cause some people, I know a guy who they turned everything out, but they kept the permit, just in case.
In case, yeah.
Just in case. What if something happens? They still get inspected. They don't have no deer in it,
Right.
but they've got a permit. So I'm sure there's some like that.
Well, I was going to say back then it was nice to keep it because you could be quote unquote grandfathered into
Sure.
certain things, but
Sure.
now it's like almost, it's not even worth to get grandfathered in because they've
No.
changed all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to circle back. So if y'all have never had a CWD positive
Mhm.
and y'all have never had that, why are y'all shut down?
Because of testing.
So who are you tied to, or how did
Nobody.
No, we're not tied to
that?
anybody.
So they
Nobody.
just shut you down?
Yes.
There's no tie.
We don't tie to nobody.
Really?
Not even in
No.
the pasture. We're not
No.
even tied to anyone in the pasture.
Zero.
It was because we
No
didn't
deer
have.
coming in, no deer
Yeah.
going out. I haven't sold a deer out of those pens to another place, pen or pasture, in 6 years. I have not moved a deer in. I mean, like I just said, nothing's come in, nothing's gone out in 6 years.
And so there's not a
No.
false positive.
There's no.
They've
there's
just
no,
shut you down.
There is no trace in, trace out.
So this
We're
is
not tied to zero.
So this is year 3, right? So two
Year
years
two.
ago, we didn't have enough deer die in our pens.
Jesus Christ.
And so we didn't meet how many tests. They told us we needed 25 tests. We had 1 deer die.
So that's okay. That makes more sense now.
Yes.
I thought you were just saying like we had to have this number of tests because so you quote unquote broke the rules
By not having deer
by
die.
not having,
having a
deer
healthy
die.
herd.
So what we've been turning deer out, right? We were movement qualified and we're turning deer out. We're turning deer out. So what we're doing is we're picking our best mamas, right? So that's the whole point. And you know, our breeding is not different. You know, we live breed some, we AI some, or we were. You know, it gets to the point to where you're like, why are we doing this? You know, let's just pump the brakes a little bit because we're feeding these deer for nothing really. And you talk about taking the monetary value off of them. That takes the monetary value off of them. I mean, you go from, okay, we're using these deer to improve our genetics and do hunts to zero.
Right.
So not that the care goes any less, but you're
Right.
sitting there looking at them going, man, I got, like he said, you know, I got 60 some odd deer here that, you know, I got 20 bucks in the pen. You know, why are we breeding? Why are we doing this? You know? So yeah. So we had from the day one we got there, we're like, okay, the first thing that we did when I got on the ranch is we brought every deer in, we ran them through the barn, we inventoried everything. We made sure we were 100%. And we've been 100%. Every time we get, you know, we get inspected, you know, you know how what park requires, and we're good. We're 100% good on our inspections. We are, I mean, when the last year that we could turn out bucks 2 years ago was the year that they implemented that you got to leave the ear tags, right? So we left the tags because we were supposed to. Did everybody do it? I don't know. I don't care, but I know we did. I still got, we saw a buck yesterday, dropped his antlers, still had a tag in his ear. And it was funny because one of the guys, I had some turkey hunters, they were like, hey, that buck's got a tag in his ear. When did you turn him out? And I said, 2 years ago. And they're like, he's still alive? And I said, that's what we do. I'm trying to breed deer that stay alive.
Yeah.
I said, that's the whole point. We're not just shooting them all. You know, people that have this misconception of, oh, you kick them out the gate and shoot them right there. No, it's, I feel like, you know, you use it to improve your genetics, to improve your ranch.
Right.
And it's funny because it's kind of, and I mean, we can get into this here in a little bit, but it's kind of gone right back. This is where we're at now.
Yep.
Because of what's gone on in the industry, right? But no, we were 100%, okay, we're going to start growing these mamas that are healthy and they're strong and they live in the pasture. That's my goal. I want does that I turn out and 3 years later, I see them walk into a feeder with an ear tag. And because we leave the ear tags in our does so we know who's who, right?
Right.
And I want to watch a doe walk into a feeder with an ear tag and go, oh, heck, man, we turned her out 3 years ago. We saw one the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I told Madison, I said, she ran across, she just trotted across the road, went to a pond, drink water. And I said, you know, when did we turn her out? She got the binoculars and looked and said, what was it, 4 years? 4 years?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. We got a doe in the pasture that we turned out 4 years ago, still alive, still having babies.
Yep.
There's twins every year.
That's the goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and that's God, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but it's the truth in the conservation side of letting them grow.
Yes.
Is it's great to know when you're starting out.
Yes.
Like no hunter wants to see a tag in the ear, but because of the rules, we have to.
Mm-hmm.
But if the goal now, and honestly, prepping for this, I went back and it's on my story right now because I am spiteful and I shared it. But I went and found that graphic I showed you on Picture Perfect Whitetails that I think it was 3 years ago. And I said, don't rely on stalkers.
Yeah.
Breed in your own pasture or whatever
Right.
it said.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I commented on it and on my story and said, like, wish I would have listened or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to know and look and go, okay, we released her at 5 years old. She's now 9. She still has babies. Hey, she's producing. Well, then the other benefit of that is you can look and go, man, that line, if you're still breeding, goes, man, she survived. what I want, because a dead deer ain't worth nothing.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go, okay, well, who's her mama? How's this? So not only are you tracking that, but then on top of that, you can go, all right, well, now that she doesn't have a fawn, maybe something happened. So you let her go another year, because she can be 15 years old
Sure.
and still have babies. But then you can go, Madison, it's been 2 years. She hasn't been walking around with a fawn. Let's go ahead and harvest her.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's not so much because she's not having a baby, but if we are in, I think Macy said it, we are in the business of fawns, like
100%.
a fawn factory,
100%.
just keep pumping them out.
That's
and so being able to continue to produce fawns, well, then by taking her off, now you're going, hey, other bucks in the pasture, go breed someone else. Don't just breed her, because it's in vain.
Right. 100%.
But that's the part where
get her off the payroll.
It's benefit to have it when you're starting, but not after you're already established.
Right.
And so, but yeah, it's that's wild. I'm glad, because even talking at the ranch, doing whatever, but even having that, it is wild that is the reason.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating on our part, because we're just sitting, our hands are tied. And so we follow the rules, as every single rule, we follow them, because we don't want to be those guys. We don't want to get in trouble for other stuff when we're hands are already tied because we can't turn out.
Right. Well, and that's my other thing is people want to boo-hoo and naysay ranch owners for having money and doing all this stuff. Name another business that can't bring money in for 3 years and still pay all the expenses, pay all the salaries, and still roll through, because if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be single whitetail being produced anywhere.
And we're feeding the same amount of mamas. I mean, we're still AIing every year. He never stopped AIing. He even knew that we were shut down, and he was like, oh, I love AI. Let's AI again. And we're AIing 30 deer, live breeding 30. And I think we have 98 deer right now. And so we're still there. We're hanging on. Hopefully these results come back soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, so if that's where you're at currently, what's the plan when all your tests come back negative and you're released, and what's next steps?
Well, we're not getting out.
That's passion.
My first response would be just turn everything out and be done with it.
Which I think that's what they want.
That's what, that's probably the end result. But we're not, we're going to keep we're going to cut our numbers down a little bit. But we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, keep trying to improve the pasture. And I think it's made a kind of a turn, if you will, with what's going on in the industry. If you look, it's gotten back to, and in my mind, in my opinion, and in my opinion, and $1.50 you go get you a cup of coffee down there at that Stripes, right? But in my opinion, that was what the pins were intended for.
Right.
This is what they were intended for. They were started to help improve pastures, improve the genetics, and grow big deer, right? It evolved into a whole different industry. And that's okay. Everything changes. Everything evolves, everything. But at the same time, I think that was part of the downfall of the industry.
Right.
And anybody, I'm speak the truth here. Anybody who says different, I'll sit down and talk to them and debate them about it and tell you, look, this is what I've seen from the beginning to today. Because I did see the beginning, I didn't jump in kind of in the middle. I was involved in some way or another, eventually going, okay, well, this is, at one point, it didn't matter hardly what ranch you went on to, they had pins or they were buying deer.
Right.
Even the ones that say, oh no, we really don't support this. Sure. You were buying deer.
Right.
You were buying does, you were buying bucks, you were releasing them. So
way back when.
So
it's the same deal to me as how we discussed earlier, is like even between y'all two is going, Dad, you really did that in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah.
And to a certain point, people just forget.
Yeah.
And they might say, oh, it's all native deer. Yeah, native to Texas.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you go pull hair or antler core samples or whatever, and a lot of these.
I can probably drive down any farm to market road in South Texas and point out the window, which I'm not the only one. Again, Macy can do it. He can drive down the road and go, yeah, they bought deer. We released deer there. We released deer there. Oh, we did a DMP. Oh, no, they run DMPs. Yeah, but they put a breeder buck in.
Yep.
And then they released him. Oh, next year they got does and they went and bought another breeder buck and put him in. Oh no, we don't do that. Yeah, you did.
Right.
You bought a breeder buck to put in your DMP pen and then turned him out.
Yeah.
So you have used the industry in a way that it should be used. You used a buck as a DMP buck, and great. That's the way it should be used. That's awesome. Use it. And I really believe that that's where it's back. We come full circle.
Right.
We've come full circle. It's like I told you the other day. Every stalker's worth the same.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what your name is before the whitetails.
Right.
Whatever, XYZ whitetails, DEA whitetails, whoever whitetails, their stalker bucks are worth what my stalker bucks are worth. If I choose so to sell them, whether we turn them out or sell them, doesn't matter. They're going to be pretty much the same value.
Right.
Because we've reverted ourselves to that. It's our fault. And I say it out loud. It's the breeder's fault.
Yep.
100%. It is our fault for where we're at right now. You won't come at me? Come at me. I don't care.
Right.
I will tell you, and I'm still on the regional board of TDA, Region 8, and I will say it out loud. It's our fault. We let it get away, and we let it happen, and we didn't, I don't want to say we didn't fight, because we did, but the common goal was not common enough for everybody to get together and achieve that goal.
Right.
That's the bottom line. So now we've come full circle, and we're back to where we started, where stalkers and does going in the pasture.
100%.
And that's what it was intended for. It was intended for improving ranches.
Yep.
Kind of got out of hand. It was fun. I was there. I watched it, and it was fun.
Oh, those TDA shows used to be parties.
Yeah.
It was like little Vegas parties.
It was fun. But now it's back to, every breeder out there is selling stalkers because that's what, who wants them coming out of the pen to pen? Very few.
Right.
And now they're even, I'm not going to lie. I got phone calls going, hey, are you selling deer? Because they can't find them.
Yep.
And I'm like, we just tested. I don't know if I'm going to sell any. First question, are you tied to anybody? No, sir. We're not tied to anybody. Anyone? No. We've been closed for 6 years. No trace in, no trace out. Let me know if you're back positive. Oh, you got does? You got bred does? Well, I do. Okay. Let me know. I've had 2 calls, same question. Are you tied to anybody?
Yep.
That's our fault. Who are we going to blame?
Right. Well, and that's what, there was already a supply and demand for stalkers.
Sure.
When there was 200 breeders.
Sure.
And so, or 200 breeding IDs, or
Right.
2,000. So
2,000, yeah.
when there was a supply and demand, and that was what our business model was, is we were going to get in, we were going to breed for 5 years, and then we were going to sell out, because I knew, now I didn't expect, and that's why I got out, for it to fall off a cliff. But overall, I saw the writing on the wall 7-8 years ago going, man, look at this. Because if you look at any other, and it blows my mind, and we talk about it often, is like, all these ranch owners are very smart and very savvy in what they do. Then they get to a ranch and they're like a woodpecker just hitting their head against the wall. But it's one of those things where you go, all right, so I'm going to talk about the whitetail breeding market. Huge peaks and valleys. And when they peak, man, they are
when it's good,
high.
it's good. Yeah.
And when it's down, it's terrible.
Yep.
It's been like this the entire time of the duration of history. Stalkers.
Yeah.
Stalker
100%.
whitetails going into ranch, and every year they consistently get a little bit more expensive
little bit
until
slowly.
they can't sell anymore.
And they're going to plateau.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. But you're right. Every year, it's like, every year I get that phone call. Hey, do you know how much your stalkers are going for? Have you heard? Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.
Man, they're in their extra $500, extra $1,000 this year. And it just goes like this.
Yeah, and you know what else is an extra $500? All your expenses for testing,
Feed
and putting them
testing,
in, and then
the testing is
outrageous. Yeah, I've thought about having that too. Is like, if we bring on, I've thought about having a whole panel of people who've been hit with CWD and just talk to them. But one, it makes sense. It's nice they go up into $1,000, but when you're $800 per head a year, you made an extra $200.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You can go to Whataburger for 4 people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what got us to where we're at. It wasn't, and I say the 2 years, we could have gone right back in and tested, but when the first time, hey, we need more, and we did, and then no, we're going to do a whole herd. That's put the brakes on us. And we said, okay, we're here. We're going to wait until here, and here, because I don't want to. And it was just I guess I could have just gone in and said, you know what, run them through.
Yeah.
But, I'm like, let's do what's best for the deer. We're going to do them in the spring. Bucks have lost their antlers. It's number one, it's safe for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not hurting it. And that's another issue. The money. I'm not going to go dart every buck in the pen to knock him down to test him when I can wait 3 months.
Yeah.
Or 4 months. And I'm going to let his antlers drop, and then we're going to bring him through and we're going to test them. And the does, it's a right time because the does are bred, but they're not close enough to where we're going to, stress them and lose babies. And so it was a timing issue.
Right.
It took us an extra year or 8 months or whatever. My decision.
Yeah.
I could have gone in and said, okay, fine. You want it? Let's do it. But I was like, let's just what's best for the herd, because right or wrong, we're still caretakers of these animals.
Yep.
And I'm not going to punish them because they're healthy. I'm not going to punish them because they're not dying.
Yeah.
So we're going to do what's best. And this is our date. And we made a date with our vet, and we just did it here a couple of weeks ago. But, we just, and I say it is a long time, but whatever, 8 months of that was our decision of we're not going to do this until we do it. And this is when we're going to do it. And so,
and like you said, it's the whole job of what we do is to take care of these animals.
100%.
And so if we're going to do it,
100%.
and yes, it is a monetary value, but like that's what they have to realize is to make those decisions is better, but it also takes people that can afford to do it.
Yep.
But like that is what is best for the animals.
Yeah, 100%.
And I get it. Like if you're one of these giant hunting operations and you have to turn around, you have to do this, but it's like, okay, that's great, but is it what's best for the animals?
And thank goodness we have the exotics. We have some exotics on the ranch. Yep. And I focused, hey, I need to sell these more exotic hunts. Let's sell some more axis hunts. Let's sell some elk hunts or whatever, exotics we have. Let's try to focus on this a little more and take the pressure off of our whitetail.
Right.
But we'd been managing anyway. I mean, from day one, and it's just my brain works, I guess, like she says, it's just because you're old. She tells me all the time, it's just because you're old, because, in my head, it's always, what's our density? How many does we have? How many, this we have? How many bucks do we need? And I understand the process of growing big deer in the pasture. Our goal is to grow big deer in the pasture.
Right.
Because then they're there. And everybody who grows big deer in the pasture knows you got to stack them. You got to stack them bucks. You got to stack them and stack them and stack them and stack them. So, yeah, you're shooting deer, but, are you shooting the right deer? I tell her all the time, one of the most important things for deer management is this. Well, the right hand, this finger, your trigger finger. You're going to shoot him or you're going to not. You're shooting the right deer, and what's the right deer? My right deer might be different than your right deer.
Right.
So, we're just, it's just different. So you're managing and we're managing and we're managing. And so we're like, okay, well, it is what it is. We're going to, life goes on, but we're going to pull the pressure off and try to do this because now we don't have those bucks. And that's okay. That's okay. I can see the deer growing. You saw them. I mean, we're working on a certain thing, and that's our goal. And that's what we're going to do. We're not going to veer from it. We're going to tweak our goal. I mean, the way we get there, but our goal is to have big deer in the pasture that are born in the pasture. Right. Right. And we're close, but it's a never ending process.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, is when someone's buying stalkers, let's go back to let's just say your entire herd. Some guy came in with some stupid money. It's like, hey, I'll give you $10,000 a head across the board. I've heard of a lot of buyouts and no one has paid that.
Right.
And so if you were to do that, it's like, that's great, but that's also going to set DEA's pasture back 8-9 years. So it's like, okay, well, that's nice that, you offer that one-time check now, but that just boosted his ranch up by 5 or 6 years. And so being able for him to buy it, not be tied to whatever else, that is one aspect of it. But man, the other side is it's not only the cost of the deer, it's the monetary value of your pasture.
And time.
The
time is the one thing, and that's what we were talking about this morning again. And, time is the most important thing. It's the most, that's what you're going to pay most for, is time. I mean, the owner of the ranch that I work for is paying me for my time, right? I mean, that's what I get paid for.
Right.
Is my time and knowledge of, hey, what are we going to do? And had a guy tell me this too, another old man saying, he says, I don't get paid for what I do. I get paid for what I might have to do. Mm. So when that crisis comes up of, hey, we're in a drought, what do we do? Well, we already planned for this. Hey, I already know, you know, we're like you said, no, we're putting our mineral out. We're doing this, we're doing this because we know the goal. So time, you're not just paying me for my time right now. You're paying me for the past 25 years, 30 years of my time that I learned the hard way of what to do and when to do it and how to do it at certain situations. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. Because you're right. It's a certain situation that, yeah, we can sell them all, but now what do we do here?
Yeah.
So you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing and go, okay, let's figure out what direction we're going to run. But yeah, that's a great question. Great. Yeah.
Because especially regionally too, going to that, because you can go into a drought where you're at versus a drought in East Texas, but everything's still green.
Yeah.
You still have grass in a drought in East Texas.
Yes. Yeah. It's so different. And I managed a ranch in East Texas, you know, and it's just like, man, I mean, you switch gears 100% of what you're doing there versus what you're doing here. Right. You know, I mean, there we use fire all the time. Fire was great in East Texas. We'd burn out the underbrush and, you know, oh, you got Yopon coming back and we got this and we got this and we got this. And I mean, it was, of course, that was back. We ran, when I was in East Texas, you want to talk about old school, OG stuff. We ran cameras, the first cameras, and Parks and Wildlife brought them and said, hey, can you try this out for us? We put cameras out with film in it. So we would have to pull the film, run down to the 1 hour processing, process the pictures and go, no, deer. I mean, just wind, you know, branches. Oh, there's a deer. Branches. Like we were going through stacks of pictures, you know, back in the day before. Now we get them on our phone, you know, now it sends it to us and we go, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that was a long time ago. And that was in East Texas. But yeah, it's a whole different deal, but it's the same, but different.
Right.
So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And that's, just the time and the aspects, because we used to do it where we made our own trail cams for these cell ones, but mentioning of the film ones, I'm trying to remember, I'm drawing a blank on his name. It's the other guy that used to run Refuge, not Chris. Anyway, so at the Refuge.
He's going to be mad.
I know he's going to be pissed.
He's going to be so mad.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
We have a lot going on.
Yeah.
But I remember when we were sitting down and we were filming for the Refuge to get a video for the show. Well, as we're going through, he was like, man, this has come a long way. And I was like, yeah, you know, the past few years. And he goes, no.
No.
He goes, we used to put a VHS tape out on a tree and just film. And he goes, you would go to a deer show in the early 90s and it might be 4 hours of nothing. With that one, and he goes, and we didn't know how to cut up a VHS tape and do this. So he goes, we would just have it and we'd kind of fast forward, but go back, there's a deer, go back. And I was like, well, thank God that you did that because I now have a job to film these breeders. You know, that was, you know.
Golly, it's going to bother me. Who made the fawn cradle? Reynolds.
Heath Reynolds.
Heath Reynolds. Yeah.
Yeah. He was telling me, he was just like, we, you know, used to put our VHS tapes up on a tree. And I was like,
I forgot about that.
That's a long time ago.
We would take, so we were doing stuff on the Covenant Ranch and they had pit blinds, right? So we would take a tractor, backhoe, we would dig a hole in the ground and we would take plywood and they would build these pit blinds. They would line the bottom with plywood and then build these boxes with shooting windows. And so we would be buried in the ground like they do in Africa, but we were building them down here out of plywood. We would take a tripod and put a VHS camera on it and let it roll. We would run our corn line and just, you know, we would leave so early in the morning and start the cameras. And then we would come back and run our corn line and then just sit there for fast forwarding through stuff till an animal just like, oh, there's a deer. Just like he says. He's right. And we had VHS cameras.
Crazy.
Or we would put them on, like when we got high tech, they had motion sensor on them. And we would put them on a tripod in the window and hit the motion deal and leave. And every time something, and could be birds. Right. It was so much dead footage. Much dead footage of nothing.
And now we have an iPhone that reaches to the feeder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Taking it with our phone.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's crazy is before even these like sale cams that send it, we would make ours off Amazon. We had a guy that helped us make them. Mm-hmm. We just have like a metal tripod, but it was huge. We had like 2 solar panels on the back. We had 3 car batteries on the bottom. But instead of motion, it would take a picture every 30 seconds. And so then I would just scroll through, I don't know what that math is, but 24 hours in a day divided by 60 divided by another half because of every 30 seconds. And so it was, and there were so many times I'm like, man, I wish this would just go off motion because, it was when we got him when he walked by, but I wish he would have turned, or he turned, but it was only halfway. But I was like, man. But yeah, how far we've come
in technology.
So what's the plan for DEA now with, you're going to get your test results back. One thing that I like in the aspect is y'all break it up in thirds. Y'all kind of have, and if people who don't know, you have a venue on location. You have your cattle.
Yes, sir.
And then you have your hunting operation. Right. So with the current state you're in, we're going to, praise God that's going to be negative. We're just going to say it. But
it is.
With everything going on that way, how does the operation run now?
As far as what we're going to do, we're just going to keep doing what we do. I mean, it's no different. Like I said, we're going to release our bucks and keep hunting and because what happens is, you're right. It's basically thirds, but within that third, so much that goes on. We have the venue, and within the venue we have the giraffes. And then with the giraffes, they use it for wedding. She's up there doing stuff with them, and now we planted an orchard. And which is doing pretty good, to be honest with you, because we know zero about trees, but we learned real cool. We had a crash course in orchards. So we've got apple trees, plum trees, pear trees, peach trees, mulberry trees. We got this whole deal going on that's going to tie into the venue. So we're going to have picking days, and they're going to have market days. We started doing market days, and last weekend I had turkey hunters. They had a market going on. She's up there selling beef, which it does really well. And we're down there at the lodge, and I said, hey man, we got a market. We were driving around, and they're like, what's going on? I said, oh, they're having market days. Well, heck, let's go. And you got 4 grown men in camouflage walking through going, oh, what kind of cookies are those? And they're buying cookies and they're buying popcorn and but it's cool, and they left and they were kind of laughing about it. They're like, dude, that was pretty cool. We came to turkey hunt and we just went in through a market days, went through a market,
on the ranch,
And so within that, there's all that going on. And then within the cattle, we have the cattle, but then there's the AI. We're planning for a private cow sale, our own private cow sale. And that's 2 or 3 years out, which, we've talked to you about because we're going to need to start doing some advertising and doing this and doing that because we have the venue. So we're going to use the venue for the cattle sale because it's there. Why not? And so, but within the cattle, we have all this. So now within the deer, we have all this, the hunting. So we're going to just keep plugging along because there's so many pieces to this puzzle on that place. Yeah. It is probably one of the most diverse ranches I've ever been on. And I love it. Keeps us busy. Sometimes we hate it, but we really do love it. Yeah. It's just really cool to sit back and go, man, we've got to think that we've got apple trees that are starting to bloom out, and we geek out about. I do, I just go, did you see the apple trees? And, she just goes, yes, I saw the apple trees. I'm like, they're going to be putting fruit out, So it's such a diverse place, which is good because when we do have this happen, where they say, hey, well, you can't do this. Right. Okay, well, that's fine. We're going to go do this, this, and this. So we're just going to keep plugging along and do what we do. But, we will release some deer. I don't know if I'm going to sell any. People are calling already. The prices are right. Probably will sell some does. And, I'm not going to sell any bucks, but I will sell some does, and because I do want to cut back our numbers even more. Right. Than what we've been kind of reducing every year, reducing. And like I said, for the last 2 years, we've had this issue with, being released, but hopefully, Lord willing, everything comes back good and we cut our numbers down a little more and then release our bucks and move forward, because you would know as well as I do, if you feel like you don't have enough deer, just wait a year and then you do, let them have babies and now you're double,
Yeah, that's one thing that I like that Macy. I guess we just need to call this a Macy podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah,
refer to
yeah,
him every time.
Yeah.
But he says they will multiply
Very quickly.
Like that's what they know how to do.
Very quickly. That's the one thing they do is they multiply and they multiply quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell her that all the time. She goes, man, well, you cut it down. I said, yeah, we can cut it down for a year and then not. And then you're back to double. You know, you got 30 does and they have twins.
Yep.
Guess what? We're at 45.
Yep.
Real quick.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're just going to keep on doing what we do. We're not changing what we do. We're going to move forward with the hunting and we just have deer to release. That's it.
Yeah.
It'll change a little bit on what we do in the pasture, because our doe numbers might go up. So we'll have to take some more, does whenever the hunting season comes around, which is what we do anyway. But
so one thing I want to ask, it'll be twofold for you, is if another ranch owner is listening to this, a ranch manager, someone running an operation, if you could give them either advice or a word,
don't do it.
what would you tell them?
Man, I don't know. That's a hard question because I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I think I would tell everybody because I do get a lot of calls and they'll go, hey, what do you think? And my first response is, man, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know, I don't know your ranch. I can't manage it on the phone. And, send me pictures of deer and say, hey, what do you think about this deer? And I'll tell you, well, he's pretty. Well, should I shoot him? I don't know. I don't know the situation. Is it your first big deer? Is it your for your grandkid? For your grandkid, kill him. If that's what you want, if that's what makes you happy, what's going to make you happy? So it's hard for me to say, give advice, but I think the one thing that I would tell pretty much any landowner is, man, don't get stuck in that rut. Don't get stuck in this is the way it's done and this is the way it's been done and this is the way it was done. We've been doing it like this for the last 50 years. Well, that doesn't mean that it's can't be tweaked.
Right.
I mean, we are constantly tweaking what we do. I mean, we have changed direction and go, let's work on this a little bit. Like you said, okay, so we AI everything. We don't have any bulls, but because of what the market's doing, now I'm developing bulls. So now we had our last calf crop. We didn't castrate any bulls. Now I have a small group and I guess I should back up. So what we did, knowing what the market's doing, I pulled a small set of cows. I bred them for our feed lot. And we had those calves on the ground. They get castrated, but the rest of them, which were normally getting castrated because they were going to the sale barn. So now I didn't castrate these because they're going into a feed lot and we're going to start developing bulls. We have the pins, we have the scales, we have the people, the knowledge. So now we're going to start developing bulls to sell. So we kind of tweaked our, deal. And I don't like bulls because they're bulls. They want to fight. They're totally different deal from a steer because steer is going to eat, drink water, and lay down. Very seldom is he going to fight you in the pen. Bring 3 or 4 bulls in and get your running shoes on, because they're going to want to fight. And they're going to get hot. They're going to tear stuff up. But the juice is certainly worth the squeeze right now. So keep your eyes open, your ears open, and be willing to say, okay, let's try that. Let's try to tweak this a little bit. Just because it's been like this for the last X amount of years doesn't mean it has to stay like that.
Right.
You can always change up.
Yeah.
Stick with the direction, but tweak with what you're doing.
Right. Then Madison, you got any words of advice to the younger generation? Did you know that Drop Time Studios offers a plethora of different services that can benefit your business? Yes, we offer photos, videos, but did you know that we offer website design, graphic design, print materials, and social media management? Even if you're not a sponsor of this podcast, it would tremendously help us if you would hire us for our normal services that my company offers. So go to droptimestudios.com and let's talk about how our company can benefit yours.
That's hard. I mean, a lot of it is listening. That's hard. Just listen, like he said. A lot of it is listening, especially to people like Macy and Jimmy. And there's people even in the deer business now that don't get credit for what they do because they know a lot. And there's a lot of smart people that are in his circle that I appreciate that are in his circle because now I'm in their circle and they're in mine. But it would literally be listening to everything. And like that, we I ask him probably every 4 months, what's your goal? Has it changed? Is it still the same? Well, it is, but what if we try this? Okay. So now that changes the way I look at pedigrees, because now he wants bulls. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to do the bull that's selling the most. And so it's probably every 4 or 5 months that I ask him, what's your goal? And we have an amazing boss. I will give him credit all the time that lets us have our own goals for the ranch. He lets us do kind of what he sees fit. Yes.
He tells us what he wants,
and he goes home,
and then he lets us pick.
And then
the
he
path.
shows up, and he's going, "Oh my gosh, look at my ranch! It's amazing. Look at it." Because me and him have goals, and we're going, okay, but this is still on the path of what he wants. But he doesn't know the backside of it, so we're gonna fit the backside in and not show him the work side because he doesn't. But he doesn't need to know that. And I told him
that's okay.
a month ago when I talked to him, I said, "You don't need to know what we do. You don't need to know that we're tired. Yeah, we're tired every day, but you don't need to know that. You just need to come out to your market and know that we're selling beef that everybody loves now. And everybody in our town is going, man, they have really good beef."
Right.
And he's sitting in the back of the table going, man, this feels nice. Man, look at my team. And he is 100% a team player. He pushes us like crazy, and he gives us 100% credit for what we do. But I would just say that and just listening
and don't she made a good point. And I guess, we mentioned 2 or 3 names and the same names because they're well known, but there are people out there that are good at what they do, fantastic at what they do. They don't get any props. They keep their head down. They're in the brush, and they're raising big deer. They're growing big deer. They're doing whatever they do with the cattle. And they just plug along. They're dragging that sled, behind them, and they're just leaning forward and walking. And man, there's just so many people that do that. And we're just fortunate to be right here in front of this camera. And because if not, we're usually in the brush with our head down doing what we do.
Right.
And you've come out to the ranch and you see what we do. And I had a guy out this week. We had some turkey hunters come out, and he got there a day early, asked me, and I said, yeah, come on in. Just one of our guys that hunts with us all the time. And he walked in and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "The things that nobody sees." And he went, "Yeah." And, we were sweeping porches. We were cleaning off porches. We were taking trash out. We were washing vehicles. We were, stacking wood back up in the wood rack. And he's like, "Man, you're right. Nobody sees this." And I was like, "No, you come into a lodge that's ready to go."
Right.
As you should. Because you're paying a lot of money.
Paying for.
Yeah, that's what you're paying for. I said, but this is the stuff nobody sees. And there's a lot of guys out there that just do this day in and day out and grow that circle, know who they are, and ask them. They're going to be willing to help. And you might go, "Well, that's a crazy idea." Okay, but take his idea and that idea, and now you got a really good idea because this is what they've done. And normally those guys, they've done it and they've seen it work and they've seen it fail. And so they're going to give you the advice of, hey, yeah, you might not want to do this, or try it this way. But yeah, props to those guys. There's a bunch of them out there that I know. They just keep their head down, don't leave the ranch. And we ran into a friend of mine here a while back at the feed store. And John, and John is John Huff is part coyote. He lives in the brush. This guy, and he's a biologist, and he knows deer, and he knows animals. And there's a lot of people in around George West 3 Rivers that know him, and it might not be well known out of there, but that guy is. We left the feed store, he hadn't seen him in a minute, and we walked up and we caught up for a little bit. And then I walked outside, and Madison goes, "Dad, he's got spider webs in his hat." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's been walking through the brush." And I said, "This is what this guy does." He traps coyotes, literally traps coyotes. I swear he's part coyote. This guy's one of the best trappers I've ever seen. But that guy has so much knowledge. So people like that, they're just tons of them down there around us that just do it day in and day out, keep their head down, do their job, don't complain because they love what they do.
Yep.
Absolutely 100% love what they do.
Absolutely.
So find that guy, ask him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, We appreciate you guys coming
Yes, sir.
on. I think we
Thank you.
covered a lot. I don't know how long it is, but I know we did enough. But I don't suspect this will be our last time either. But I
Thank
know
you.
it's a drive, and I know
Yeah, we appreciate it.
y'all's time. And
Oh, we enjoy
again,
it.
y'all are
Yes,
still leaving the ranch
Yes,
to
sir.
come here. So,
Yes, sir.
well, thank y'all for coming on. And again, thank you to everyone listening to the Drop Town Studios podcast. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.